Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. My name's Anthony and in today's video I'm going to talk to you about something that I've been through and a lot of my friends have been through, and that is moving to London. Now moving to London can be really daunting. You might not know what you've got to do, you might not know what you need to get together, and in this video I'm going to explain what you need to do if you're moving from somewhere else in the UK or even abroad, the kind of things that you need to look out for, some websites that you should go on, and a few little bits and bobs that you should know before moving to London. But before we get started, don't forget to like and subscribe. It really does help my channel to grow. Please also leave a comment. I really like to chat to you guys and get to know you a bit. But yeah, let's get started. Okay, so you've just got a job in London. How exciting. And now what you need to do is make the move. You need to look for a flat, you need to work out travel, you need to work out where you're going to go out, you need to work out how you're going to socialize, how you're going to make friends, all of this crazy stuff. So the first thing to sort out when moving to London is your accommodation. Now you need a place to stay, you need a place to live, and you need a little base to sleep and rest your head. So first thing to do, if you've got a higher budget, great, well done you, you're earning that money. You need to go on websites such as Rightmove or Zoopla and start looking for a flat if you don't want a house share. Now if you're moving to London, I would suggest you house share first of all, because you're not going to have friends here unless you know quite a few people here already. You're not going to know many people, so house share is the best way to go to make friends and sort of get to know people a little bit. And it's already a ready-made friend group that you can just slot right into. So if you're looking for a flat on your own, great, go and do that. That's Zoopla, Rightmove, I'll leave links down below. But if you're not and you're on a tighter budget and you've just got your first job and you're moving to London, then spareroom.com is great. Now this is a really good website because you can go on there, you can sort of sort by your budget, you can sort by if you want bills included or not included, you can sort by how many roommates you want, you can sort even by if you want to share a room if you've got a really limited budget. Now I don't like to share a room. I've never shared a room except for when I was a child with my brothers, but I don't want to do it in my adult life, so I had to up my budget and I used Spare Room, and I found a really good flat in Elephant and Castle, and it was £500 a month and it was all bills included. Oh my god, I can't even believe that. That's amazing. Now I'm paying over double that, which is crazy, but you know, wherever, needs must, and you move up, and obviously I've bought my house, so that's a bit different. Anyway, you can go on Spare Room, I'll leave links to it down below, and you can find your perfect roommate. Now obviously because we're in a pandemic, a lot of people will be Zooming and they'll be doing FaceTimes and things like that, and they'll show you around the flat there and then. So I guess that's just the way it's going to go, but normally what you would do is you would go and see the flat, you'd have a sit down with the roommates, and you just have a chat to see if you gel well and if you like each other and if you've got the same kind of way of living, whether you clean, tidy and all of that sort of stuff. To be honest, London is such a fast-paced market that the roommates might have 3 or 4 different people interested in that flat, and the roommates will then choose if you're right for them. But I want to say, please be careful when you use these kind of websites. If something looks too good to be true, as people always say, it probably is. If you see an amazing apartment that is well decorated and it's stunning and it's modern and clean and amazing and it's £200 a month, there's something wrong there. Usually I'd say an average room now is between £550 and £600, and then your bills on top, just depending on the kind of flat that you're going to live in. It may be a little bit more, it may be a little bit less, but it just depends. But really do your research, really speak to the people, and make sure you know about how landlords work and all of that sort of stuff. You'll be asked for a deposit, you'll be asked for your first month's rent up front, but if you're giving a deposit over, you need to make sure that it's been put in the deposit protection scheme, which is really important. Make sure it's being put in there. And if a current flatmate that's in the house is moving out and you're taking their place, and they ask you to pay them the deposit, so their deposit stays in the deposit protection scheme, you need to speak to the landlord and make sure that's actually what's happening and they're not getting their deposit back as well. Just make sure you're on top of it, make sure that you're very organized, and make sure that you're speaking to the relevant people. And if that is the case, that the deposit is staying in there, make sure that deposit is changed over to your name so it doesn't go back to the original person in the room. Very complicated, but make sure that you are very on top of it, because you don't want to lose your money. Now speaking of money, what is the deposit? Well, usually it's 6 weeks worth of rent, and then you also need to pay up a month's worth of rent up front. So how many weeks is that? That's 11 weeks of rent up front. So say for example your rent is going to be £600 a month. What you need to put aside is that £600. Then you need to divide that 600 by 4 and then times that by 6, which gives you £1,900. So total to move into that flat, you'll need £1,500 to move in. So make sure you've got all your ducks in a row and make sure that you've got the money ready available. When I moved to London, I actually had to take out a loan and pay that back over a year, which was a massive expense because I wasn't earning that much money when I first moved to London, and to pay out a loan and the rent and all of this sort of stuff really limited the funds for the first year, but I paid it back and I paid it in full, and I'm very happy that I did it because otherwise I wouldn't be here. You also need to make a decision whether you're going to go for a furnished flat or an unfurnished flat. Personally, I think if you're moving to London your first year, you want to go for a furnished flat because you don't know whether you're going to like the area, you don't know whether you're going to like your flatmates, you don't know whether it's going to be right for you. So usually I would say go furnished for your first flat, probably even your second flat, and then from there you can start building up your furniture and go unfurnished if you want. Furnished flats are slightly more expensive, but then you don't have the upfront cost of furnishing it. To furnish a room, you could spend anywhere between £500 and £1,000 just on getting beds, wardrobes, bedside tables and desks and all of that sort of stuff. So bear in mind that it might be slightly cheaper to go for an unfurnished room, but you don't have to buy the furniture. You also want to look for a flat that's about 5 to 10 minutes walk away from a tube station. Now tubes are really important, and I'll go into them in a minute, but they are your lifeline. No one drives in London unless you have got a really high wage that you can afford to pay for. What is it called? I don't even know what it's called. Let me have a look. Congestion charge, that's it. So unless you've got a really high wage, you don't want to be paying for that congestion charge, and you want to be getting the tube, you want to be getting the DLR, or you want to be getting buses. So I'll go through that in a second. You also want to check out the local area. So if you're actually going to visit the flat, walk around the area, just see what's there, see what the shops are, see what kind of places you can buy food from, see what places you can get little bits and bobs, see what corner shops there are. You know, you need bread, you need milk, you need cheese, you need butter, you need all of that sort of stuff, and you need to make sure that it's on your doorstep. And then you also want to make sure that there's a big supermarket around it for all of the big shops that are there. I mean, you could also order online, but you do want stuff on your doorstep if you just need to nip out and get something. And obviously we're in lockdown at the moment, we're in the middle of a pandemic, so for now, Google it and Google walk the streets and make sure that where you're going to be staying, there are the shops, there are the little bits and bobs that you can buy stuff, and make sure that that's all around you. Okay, so the next thing after accommodation is, as I mentioned before, is your travel. So in London, we use something called Oysters. Where is my Oyster card? So in London, we use something called an Oyster. Now that is to get around, that's to get on your buses, that's to get on your trains, that's to get on your tube and your DLR and all of that sort of stuff. Now, Oysters are really good because you can use your card, but it's kind of like a top-up service. So you top it up and you use it for the month. Or if you don't want to top up pay as you go, you can actually get weekly, monthly, every 3 months, or even a yearly pass for your Oyster. And that's to use the tube, the buses, and all of that sort of stuff. And I'll leave a link to the prices down below. Now, depending on what zone you're going to live in, the price goes up. So if you're in zone 6, it's going to be really expensive to go from zone 6 to zone 1. So just be mindful of that and make sure that you're budgeting for that. When I moved to London, I was really lucky because I actually lived in zone 1, which was amazing. It was so easy to get around. I could actually get a bus anywhere, and I also could just hop on the tube and in 10 minutes I was in the centre, or it was only 20 minutes to work, which was amazing. And for the price, that was really good. And that was in Elephant and Castle. So yeah, speaking of the different zones, it's really important to pick where you're living. So if you want a little bit more of a fancy area that's got a little bit more on its doorstep, then you can go to places like Clapham, you can go to Liverpool Street, Brick Lane, or even you can go to Soho. Now they are going to be very expensive. I'm talking upwards of £1,000 per month for a micro studio flat. Now if you want some more affordable places, there's places like Elephant and Castle that I've lived, Peckham, Stratford, or any of the local sort of zone 2 to 3 areas. They are going to be a lot more affordable for people to rent and live in. So definitely look at them areas and see what's about. And obviously you're living in London and you want a bit of a social life, so make sure that around your house there are places to eat, places to go and drink, and places to socialise. You want like a local bar, you want like a local restaurant that you can go, you want some takeaways, you want some bits and bobs that you can just nip out and get. So yeah, make sure all of that's around there and make sure that you're happy with where you are living. And speaking of that, social life and nightlife is really important, especially if you're just moving to London and you want to make new friends. So you can go out in places like Clapham, Soho, Liverpool Street and Brick Lane. They're just some of the nightlife places that you can go. If you want something a bit more premium, you can go to Mayfair. Let's talk about something that's really, really important, and that is budgeting. When you move to London, you're going to have to budget quite a lot. I still live off a budget now, and I'm actually really strict with my budget because I like to save as much money as I can. Obviously, we're in the middle of a pandemic, and it's such a good job that I'm such a good saver, because I'm in a really fortunate position where I do have a little bit of savings aside that is keeping me going while I'm looking for a new job. Because if you didn't know, I was made redundant not too long ago. So budget is essential. Now, the first thing that you need to cover off is your rent. So make sure your rent is covered off. You need to make sure that you're accounting for bills if it's not included in your rent. Ideally, if you're first moving to London, I would definitely look for a place where all bills are included. But if not, make sure that you've accounted for your rent and your bills. That is the two main things. Also, your phone. Make sure you've got enough money in your bank account to cover your phone charges, Spotify, and all your subscriptions. Just make sure you've got a list of how much everything costs, and make sure you write it all down, and make sure you've got enough money at the end of the month to pay all of that. Now, I would always say put away a little bit towards saving, because you never know when you're going to have to emergency move out. You never know when you're going to have to use an emergency fund or anything like that. So save up and save well. Even if you can only afford to save £10 to £50 a month, that is a massive thing. So just make sure you're saving. It's really, really important, especially because in this current climate, people are losing their jobs left, right and centre. So saving is essential. And from there, you just need a lifestyle budget as well. My budget comes in 4 different sections, which is rent, well actually mortgage at the moment. So mortgage, bills, fun money, and then living expenses. So you need to make sure that you've got all of that done and covered. And once you've got that, any money that you've got left over is great. I would honestly try and live within a budget and try and save as much as possible, especially in your first year. When I first moved to London, I was on 19k a year. It was a relatively low wage for what I was doing, but you know what? It is where it is. It was an entry-level position, and as you climb the ladder, you'll earn more. I actually had to get a part-time job to sustain myself for a couple of years that I was in that position for. So yeah, it was tough, but it was worth it. And it really taught me some valuable skills, not being on a lot of money. It taught me about how to make my money go further. I used to go out 4 nights a week as well. I don't know how I did that on 19 grand a year. But yeah, so they're the key things that you need to look out for if you're moving to London. If you want to know anything about that, reach out to me on my social media, on my Instagram, or even leave a comment down below. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. It really does help my channel to grow. And please also check out my Etsy shop, where you can buy cards and vectors to help support you in your everyday design life. And it really helps to support this channel. Alright, okay, thanks for watching. Alright, bye. Cha cha cha. Bye.